Namaste Sharade Devi Kashmir Puravasini Twamaham Pratyaya Nityam Vidyadhanam Chadehini Sharada Sharadam Boja Vadana Vadanam Buje Sarvadha Sarvatha Smakam Sarnitim Kriya. I offer this speech with utmost devotion and reverence at the lotus feet of Bharat Mata, with a sincere prayer that it should enhance the happiness of every individual and maintain better global peace. Thank you, Shri Subramaniam, for the very, very kind and nice words. And before even we start, we should offer our salutations to the all-time great Narayan Swami sir for what he had contributed to the field of chartered accountancy, the field of income tax, and the field of in very many social causes. I thank Rajaji Centre for Public Affairs for giving me this opportunity to speak. I should personally thank Gurumurthy sir. It was he who suggested that I should do a speech on this topic for the sake of the youth. And he has also told me to write a paper after the speech, that it should be part of the records. I thank him so much. I thank my two colleagues, my juniors, Jayalakshmi and Kanti. Where are you, in case you are there? Yeah, these are the two girls who sat for almost 15 days, 6-7 hours a day before we could collect all these preparations. And I thank Mr. Srinivas, husband of Jayalakshmi, for preparing the financial and other important political details and data. I thank all the senior citizens of Chennai. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you. And the youngsters and a few more college students with professors likely to come here. I also thank senior councils and friends across India who have travelled for the sake of hearing this lecture in this hall. I'm grateful to all of you. I shall endeavour and try to do my very best the next 75 minutes. Dr. Ambedkar, when he was confronted first on Article 370, these are the very words he expressed. You want that India should defend Kashmir, India should develop Kashmir, and Kashmiris should have equal rights as the citizen of India. But you don't want any in India or any citizen of India to have any rights in Kashmir. I cannot betray the rest of my country. This was his reaction when somebody suggested Article 370 to him, because he was the chairman of the Constituent Assembly drafting the Constitution of India. When it got passed, somebody met Sardar Patel and said, see, this has happened. What are we going to do? Sardar, in his equipoise, said this: if we cannot have confidence in our own strength, we don't deserve to be called a nation. He stopped there. In 1963, December, the then Prime Minister of India said, Article 370 stands eroded. Kashmir stands fully integrated. The then Home Minister, who spoke in the Parliament, said, Article 370 is nothing more than a shell emptied of its contents. Nothing has been left in it. We can do it in 1 day, 10 days, 10 months, and that's entirely for us to consider. This was a statement made by the then Prime Minister and the Home Minister in 1963. But, ladies and gentlemen, it took 56 long years thereafter for the present Prime Minister and the Home Minister to now declare India, that is Bharat, is a union of states, functionally, integrally, and constitutionally, so that we claim the pride that Henceforth, it is one nation and one constitution. So this is the journey from 1947 to 2019. What happened these 72 years in Jammu and Kashmir? The first misconception, the popular misconception many of us have is as though Jammu and Kashmir is the only princely state which was left out prior to independence, and the rest of the 561 states had signed the instrument of accession. So there was a need to do all this, and therefore as a peace process, as an appeasement, we have agreed for this. This is a popular misconception of all of us. But the story is different. It's not just Jammu and Kashmir did not join with India. Totally, 3 princely states did not sign the instrument of accession on the day of independence. Jammu and Kashmir, princely state of Junagadh, and more importantly, Hyderabad. And in the order of sequence, it's very important. The first one to sign instrument of accession was Kashmir. Kashmir was not the last. It signed it on 26th October 1947. Followed by Junagadh in November 1947. And finally followed by Hyderabad in November 1949, after 2 years. And you must know, history records it as a matter of fact that Hyderabad had its own stamps, its own currency, its own army. It was a self-contained nation by itself. And it chose to integrate with India wholly. So, it's not that Jammu and Kashmir joined us last. The second crucial factor is, yes, all the 562 signed the instrument of accession in the same way. It's a normal assumption all of us have. Yes, it's true. The instrument of accession was a common document. All the states who wanted to be part of India signed it. But with one difference. The rest of the 561 states not only signed the instrument of accession, it conceded to the fact that we will be part of the Indian Constitution. Jammu and Kashmir differed there. After signing the instrument of accession. And the story is, why did this happen and why should it have happened? Dr. Ambedkar, the chairman of the Constituent Assembly, disagreed. The main party, the Congress, disagreed. The Constituent Assembly disagreed. Whomsoever they speak, they did not agree. And it yet fell into place. It was given because it was given as a commitment. That's the history records it only as a fact. That at the highest it's a commitment to those people and therefore we should honor it. There is no other historical importance or evidence to say why did we take this stand at that point of time. Well, what happened after that? This happened in between 1947 to 1950. The Constituent Assembly of Jammu and Kashmir got elected. This happened in 1950. See, the difference between India drafting its own constitution and Jammu and Kashmir, which is part of India, drafting its own constitution. Our Constituent Assembly is a nominated body, not an elected body. Whereas the Constituent Assembly, which the expression they use in Constitution, which all these people say, there is no Constituent Assembly, it's all dead and gone and therefore you cannot touch that article. That's the theory. It's a misconception again because the Constituent Assembly was an elected legislative assembly carrying the name Constituent Assembly because it was drafting the Constitution at that point of time. It was an elected assembly, but through an adult franchise. So they elected a body which was given the responsibility to draft the constitution. So the history of Jammu and Kashmir between 1950 and 1957, first phase, is very crucial. Because when our constitution came into force on the 26th January 1950, we adopted our constitution. And Article 1 of the constitution, when it defined the territories, list of territories, it defined Jammu and Kashmir also as part of India. But it gave two rights to Jammu and Kashmir. It said, you can have your own constitution. And two, we will relate ourselves through our constitution with Jammu and Kashmir through Article 370. So, technically speaking, in 1950, rest of India, all the 395 articles of the constitution applied. But for Jammu and Kashmir, only Article 1 and Article 370 technically applied. Rest of the constitution did not apply to Jammu and Kashmir. Because it gave that we will relate ourselves every time through Article 370. So, understand, two things happen. Jammu and Kashmir was given the right to draft its own constitution. And whatever India had to do with them through the constitutional process, it has to go through the prescriptions of Article 370. And Article 370 said, whatever, see, before princely states joined India, that is the Union of States, when they were under the British control, British retained three: communication, external affairs and defense. Rest were all left to the princely states. Kashmir retained the same formula. It said these three will be with the rest of India. Rest is all ours. And they were given the right to draft their constitution in 1950. This was the first stage. In 1952, there is an agreement called a famous Delhi Agreement. What did it say? It said Jammu and Kashmir can have its own flag. So we have a national flag. Jammu and Kashmir can have its own flag. Then, if you see the constitutional dynamics, the centre or the Union of India, the Parliament, retains the power to legislate laws on residual items which are otherwise not mentioned anywhere. You have two entries, one is the state entry, another is the central entry, and you have a third entry called the concurrent entry. So if things don't fall under this, the power is always in the Parliament to legislate. Whereas 52 agreement said, residuary power will be with Jammu and Kashmir. So, undefined powers was handed over to a state. These are the two major aspects which happened in 1952. Now comes the third important development, the famous Constitutional Order 1954. And what did it do? It said two things. Kashmir can define its own permanent resident rules. You can define who can be a permanent resident of Kashmir, and you can manage anything surrounding it. It also empowered Jammu and Kashmir to say, after you define your residents, you can also give them whatever restrictions you want to give for non-residents, you can do it in terms of employment in state government, in terms of educational scholarship, in terms of settlement in Jammu and Kashmir, in terms of property right, and also you can deny them the right to vote in state assembly elections. These were the rights given to Jammu and Kashmir in 1954. And then came the Constitution of Jammu and Kashmir in 1957, with all these rights embedded in it. They were virtually independent in every sense. But the Constitution conceded three facts very clearly. It said, we are in Kashmir is and shall be a part of India. And it also said this clause cannot be amended at any point of time. So the territorial sovereignty was the only link we had with Jammu and Kashmir. Rest is all left to them. In fact, one retired judge of that High Court, Justice G.D. Sharma, has written a wonderful article about this 1954 order. See the misconception. In fact, all of us see when you watch the media, they keep saying women have been denied rights in Kashmir. There are 3 sets of transactions that had happened in Kashmir which we should remember. Transaction 1, Kashmiris had the right to be a permanent resident of Kashmir, and the rest did not have that right. 2, you can have discriminatory practices between Kashmiri Indians and the rest of India, and the constitution allows you to do it. And 3, there was a misconception that because of these 2, the Kashmiri women were discriminated from Kashmiri men in terms of marriage and inheritance. These were the 3 things which Kashmiris conceived to be their right. Why and how? Before the Maharaja gave the instrument of accession to India, he wanted to have a defensive mechanism of Jammu and Kashmir property and its people, especially women, against British. That's what history records it. So he made 2 preconditions with British regime. He said, you retain the 3, we will be one of the princely states under your influence and control, but make it very clear, we will not be ready for 2 things. We will not allow Britishers to acquire any property in Kashmir. That's number 1. And 2, we will not allow our Kashmiri women to marry Britishers. This was the legacy history of Kashmiri women and the property of Kashmir. This was a defense mechanism against the British. But where was the need to maintain that mechanism post-independence in 1947 was the question. Why do you need to say inheritance rights and property rights are not available to the rest of the Indians? That was the question raised. But the second question we all thought was, as though Kashmiri women cannot marry a non-Kashmiri. That's a popular misconception. But you must understand, when the residence rules were framed, no such distinctions were made. But a High Court judgment of Jammu and Kashmir in 1965 laid down the law. Kashmiri women cannot marry a non-Kashmiri. It was through a judicial judgment in 65. There was no law.